Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Brilliant You Business Show. My name is Jenny Stevens, and this week is guest week, and I've got a fab lady I brought to you this week with Charlotte Lester, and we're going to be talking all about how to avoid burnout, when it might be time to outsource, and some tips to help you with that as well, but really helping you just not feel overwhelmed and burning out, because we want to have a business that we enjoy, that gives us ease and freedom. And so Charlotte is a friend of mine, and I wanted to bring her on, and this is her topic of expertise. So welcome, Charlotte. So nice to have you here today. How are you?
Hey, I'm very well, thank you. And thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We're welcome. So I love the name that you've created for your business. So I'd love for you to just kind of introduce yourself. Charlotte and I are in sort of a mastermind sort of group coaching program together. And we've, kind of been seeing each other around and just getting to know each other a bit more over the last, 6 months, a year. So yeah, I wanted to bring Charlotte on. So yeah, just kind of give us a little bit of a backstory into who you are, what you do, and yeah, you can kind of talk a little bit about, I love your branding. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. So yes, I have created what is now known as the Burnout Slayer Toolbox. And I've been in business for around 6 years now, and the Burnout Slayer Toolbox is actually quite a new model, but the offerings inside aren't new. It's the model that kind of aligns all our offerings together, because at the core of every single one of our offerings is around burnout and preventing burnout, because ultimately prevention is so much easier than recovery from burnout. And burnout is one of these terms that I think is thrown around a lot. And people often say, it just happened. I just burnt out. I didn't see any differences. I was a bit stressed. I was a bit overwhelmed. And all of a sudden, they've kind of really fallen down with their health, and not just mentally, but physically as well. And I think it's something that we all need to talk a bit more openly about and kind of break that stigma around. So that's really where the Burnout Slayer Toolbox was born. So it's all around building up that awareness of how to prevent burnout, the tools that you can use, and making sure that you're using the right tools at the right time. Because, it's something that many people will say, because I'm predominantly known to run a business management and implementation agency. But people will say, well, that's a bit controversial, because I'll always say to people, is it the right time to outsource? Is this the right thing to be doing? Because, it's not all the time. And if you outsource too soon, or if you outsource the wrong things, that can actually lead you to burnout anyway. So that's something that we really want to avoid. And that's where building up that awareness of the prevention around burnout and how to do it, and the steps to take to just make your life easier and simpler, and, create that freedom that we all want from business, because that's what we want, right? We do want that freedom, whether or not it be time, money, whatever that is, we all want that. So that's really where the Burnout Slayer Toolbox has formed, and kind of really, really helping people on that road.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is that term that people just say like, oh, like I'm burnt out, but it can be really severe, can't it? Like one of our friends, I mean, like serious kind of like, what's it called? Adrenal fatigue or something. Like, it's not just, oh, I'm tired, I've worked a bit too much. Like I think you're right. That term is flung out like willy-nilly, but when actually it's, you can catch it. And I've had to do the same sort of thing recently. Like, I threw myself into work. I talked about it actually on the last episode, because I'd gone through a bit of grief, losing my cat, and so many things had kind of got in the way that I threw myself into work, and then I was getting exhausted. But I was aware of it, like after a while, not initially. So yeah, I think it's really important for people to see kind of either what's causing them to get into burnout. And so I'd love to kind of have a chat about that, and also like how they can recognize it and some of those steps. So what are some of the common things that you see then, like with your clients and your audience and people that you're around? What are some of the common things that you see when it comes to on that route to burnout?
Yeah, so most of the common things people will say, because I think it's in this online world, I love the online world, it's amazing. But there's so many people that have this hustle mentality. It's not meant to be easy, it's meant to be hard. And you need to get up at 3 a.m. to do this thing. If you haven't got enough time and you haven't got the money to outsource, get up early, I'll create more time. And we're surrounded by this kind of thought leadership of, you just have to do more, kind of just ignore the signs, just get on with it. And a lot of the time clients come to me and they'll say, I'm just stressed out, I'm overwhelmed, I've got all these things, I'm getting up at the crack of dawn, I'm working late till the evening, I'm not seeing my children, I don't know what to do, I've tried outsourcing, it didn't really work. And ultimately, it's kind of their cry for help, because they're just thinking, I've tried everything that these gurus are telling me to do, and it's not working. And when you actually look deeper into their business, most of the time, the reason it's not working is because they've either outsourced too soon or they've not outsourced the right things. And I always say, before you outsource, you need to make sure that you're streamlining back what you're doing. Look at the strategies you're doing, look at the results you're getting, and they're the things you should outsource. There's no point outsourcing something if you've been following a particular strategy, say for a year, you've not got the return back that you're expecting. What's the point in outsourcing that strategy? Ditch it or adapt it. And that's ultimately where a lot of people fall when it comes to outsourcing, because they outsource these things and they don't really look at the end results from it, because they may say, oh, I haven't got time to track metrics, or I don't know what I'm looking at. And it's not saying that you need to track all the metrics in the world, it's tracking the metrics that align to your goals. And until you've done that, I really wouldn't say that outsourcing should be an option. You need to get really, really clear in what that looks like for you.
I'm such a spreadsheet geek. Like, I love spreadsheets, and I love tracking. I'll track as much as I can, because it helps you so much. It helps you to see what's going on. And I totally agree. Like, it can be something that people just think, oh, well, I'll do it, at the end of the year, or I'll do it, once a quarter or something. And tracking does help you make decisions, doesn't it? Because if you don't know, I always say, and I can't remember who I learned it from, but it was like, if you don't know your numbers, you don't really have a business, because you've got to know what's going on, like under the bonnet, don't you, under the hood, to see what's actually going on in your business. Because you're absolutely right. Like, and we can all get caught up in it. Like, even, this show, it's, I track certain metrics, but you've really got to spend that time to assess what's working, what's not, what might I tweak to see, okay, can I get more views, or can I increase how many people are watching or listening for longer, or how many people are actually going to take action on my call to action? Because if your audience isn't growing and they're not doing anything, something's not working. So what can you then do about it? So I'm glad you brought that up, because tracking, I'm a total geek when it comes to stuff like that. I love tracking. And so many people get overwhelmed by spreadsheets, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming, doesn't it? But you've got to just start and make a start with knowing what's happening.
Yeah. I think the main issue with people that aren't tracking any kind of metrics is that, they sit there and they think, well, it's fine, I'm getting sales, so this strategy must be working. Where in reality, they're doing probably about 10 different strategies. So you say to them, okay, well, what one's actually generating that sale? And they'll be like, well, I don't really know. And that's when they start to look into it. And actually, then they start realizing that they're spending time on strategies that they don't need to be, because there's only one of those strategies that's generating those sales. So put all that effort into that one strategy rather than all these other ones that just isn't bringing you anything back.
Yeah. And there's a bit of a balance there as well, though, isn't there? Because you kind of need to give a strategy long enough to get consistency going, to get track. We can't expect to suddenly get sales after like doing 2 posts, or 2 videos, or like whatever. You've got to give it long enough. But there is a bit of it's finding that balance, which there's no rule of thumb really, is there? But like, what would you suggest in terms of how long, in a way, should people do something before going, maybe
Yeah.
this isn't working, try something else or whatever?
I would always say 90 days. That's kind of my rule of thumb. And that's
Minimum, yeah.
why I'm really, I really encourage 90-day planning rather than yearly planning.
Yeah.
And although, yes, you know, set the yearly goals or set the 5-year goals, whatever that looks like. But actually, the more in-depth goals should only be set for 90-day intervals, because I don't know about you, the last year for me, business has changed so much. If
Yeah.
I was going by my yearly goals, there is no way that I am where I am now, because, you know, that it just changes, things evolve, you know. Back in 2019, when it came into 2020 for COVID, none of us would have really anticipated that happening.
No.
And so many people looked and they were like, I'm not meeting my yearly goals. And it's like, well, of course you're not. You know, the world is completely different.
Yeah.
We need to be evolving, we need to be changing that up. So I always say 90 days. And in order to track the metrics, I always say at least do it monthly. So then when you're looking at those metrics, if you've got a strategy that you're testing out for those 90 days and you say, okay, well, you're getting some bites for that strategy, then you can look at, okay, well, how can I really increase those bites? Because the strategy is working. So how can I really get more from it? So then you can really say that at the end of those 90 days, whether or not that is a strategy that you should be pursuing, or whether or not it's something that you need to maybe ditch or pause for a while and try something new.
Yeah, totally. And I love what you said about, and I'd like to talk a bit about more, because obviously you've got that agency where people can, you know, get help. So what are some of those things then, like you said earlier, about some people can outsource too soon? So let's kind of talk a bit about what that looks like when, because that is one of the biggest questions, like, when should I outsource? People, they either wait until it's too late, you know, and so many people that I see, they're like, I wish I'd outsourced sooner. But it can be it can be a really tricky situation. I've totally been in that myself, you know, recently, with I need to, I want to, but I either can't quite afford it yet, or, you know, so what would be, you know, let's kind of just talk a bit about that, because obviously you know so well. I'm sure you see it all the time with people going, help, and then go, I'm not sure I can quite do it.
So with the agency side of things, I will always say to people, kind of touched on the streamlining side, so looking at what's working, what's not. Once you've done that, looking at the strategy and thinking, okay, well, can this be automated? Because, you know, you could spend about £20 a month on Zapier and have that task or process automated. So of course, if that's doable and that's going to work and not affect the results, then I would also always say to do that as well. The things that you want to be outsourcing are the things that you can't automate and you can't streamline back. The things that are working, and, you know, I love automation, but there are some parts that I would always say it probably shouldn't be automated. You don't want to automate to the extent that it kind of, you know, it annoys your customers, because you know, we've all been there, haven't we?
Well, people want you, don't they? They like, it's knowing what tasks you need to be involved. Because if people just feel like they're just talking to a robot, then it's kind of like, well, what am I even doing here? Like, people, you still need to have that human connection, don't you? But yes, it's automating the things that can easily be that fits in them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as an example for me, so my guest podcast, so if I use that as an example, that process, most of it's automated. The only thing that I have to do is actually do the podcast and then some of the editing afterwards. But the way that the podcast is laid out, you know, it's conversational, it's, you know, things happen, you know, if the dogs are barking and, you know, we have to pause it, we might just cull it a little bit, but, you know, we kind of keep that authentic feel there. But that's because I know that actually having a fully edited, all singing, all dancing podcast isn't really the objective of that podcast. The objective of it is to build up that awareness around burnout and to build up those conversations and kind of break the stigma around burnout. So I know that's not important for me to then pay someone to fully edit that podcast. I want to get it out there, you know, imperfect as it is. And and just kind of show people that it is okay to be imperfect. You know, this is something that I know we were talking before. I only launched that podcast on the 22nd of October. I don't know how well this podcast is going to go. So why would I then pay someone to make it look all amazing, you know? And although I don't want to break the quality there, I want to make sure that that thing is working before I then invest money into someone actually doing the kind of faff work, I would call it.
Yeah, like I've had to do my own myself initially because it was a whole new, like I'm pretty techie, but like trying to figure out how to use GarageBand and even know like about the software, you know, it was a bit like, it takes me a while, but then I was like, okay, I've got it. And actually it can be so much simpler. Like I did a little reel, like tutorial reel a couple of weeks ago, showing people actually it's so easy to take, like I do, you know, I record the episode as video and I do it, a tiny bit of editing just to take out anything that's major fluffs, or, you know, like last week I was crying, so there was some big pauses, which for video was okay, but for the podcast it was like people just thinking, what the hell are you doing? But actually it literally can take me 5 minutes to literally just strip the audio out. I add on my intro and it's pretty much done. And you don't even need an intro, like you don't even need that. You could literally just take it. So and sometimes the tech scares people, and that's where I love helping people with the tech, because it's like it doesn't need to be scary. It's just a case of sometimes just sitting down and just having a go and clicking around. And there's some people just don't feel confident to even click around and have a go, but it's the only way that you learn. And then you go, oh, actually it's not that scary. But yeah, I love that, because like you say, you don't know how well it's going to go. You might go, actually, I really don't like making podcasts, I'm going to scrap it after 90 days, so what's the point of hiring someone? I mean, I don't think podcast is going anywhere. Like, oh yeah, I like turning the content into podcasts. But yeah, it's like you don't need to start out by hiring some snazzy sound engineer or whatever they're called. Apologies if you're a sound engineer. I think it's a sound engineer. You know, someone to do that. So yeah,
I think that's the thing. It's just accepting that, you know, things are okay. Get out there, test the waters, see what's working, you know, and where you are in your journey, especially if you are worried about the financial side of things, you know, give it a go and see, because if you're then getting the return back from that particular thing, you can invest that into having someone help you with the parts that can't be automated in the future.
Yeah, I think as well, it's important. There's certain things where like and this is probably one of my downsides, because I try and do it all. Because I'm a bit of a control freak, but I like to know how to do things. And I know I've heard lots of other people say it as well, that yes, there might be some things that are just not your forte, like building a website. But even that, like I love teaching people how to do it themselves, because you need to know how to use it. Otherwise you're going to be paying someone constantly to make the smallest of updates, or you've got a new idea and you want to make a new simple funnel and you don't know how to do it. So it's worth investing that time to get enough skills. But I think to outsource, like I'm newer to the outsourcing world, but just again, from what I know from myself, it's going to help you so much. You need to kind of know the process that you want, that from doing it yourself, and then you can go out and say to somebody else, okay, here's what I'd like you to do. This is how I'd like it to be done, unless obviously, you know, someone can help with, actually, have you thought about doing it like this, you know, but otherwise you're literally putting all of your trust and faith in someone, which yes, there are times that you do that. But for things like, you know, if you want someone to help repurpose your content, which is a big one, isn't it, that people, you know, that's certainly what I need help with. If you can tell people what you want and how you'd like it done, then it's going to make their life easier as well, rather than them kind of going in blind going, I don't really know.
I think that's the thing, because it's, you know, they'll say, oh, I want to test this thing out, or oh, such and such has told me that I need to do this strategy, so I'm going to go and do that. And actually I have no system, no process behind what they're doing. They have no goal, they have no objective, and they ultimately just want to hand it to someone. And you know, I probably annoy some people, because I'm like, no, we need to do more work on this. It's not going to be in your benefit to just hand us this thing, because we could get on with it. But not one of my clients throughout the past 6 years has done something the same. Every single client wants something done differently, and that's we should do, because we're not running cookie cutter businesses. There are different things, there's different tones of voice, there's different elements. And although if you came to us and said, okay, I need some help with maybe the strategy side of things, we could pull that together and pull the ideas together for you. But ultimately, the person that knows the business and knows where they want to go with this thing, it is you as a business owner. So you need to know, to an extent, what you can do. And I always say this because we've got some OBMs in the team, and there's this big thing around online business managers, which OBM, sorry, I should have said, and that they just do the management side. Whereas actually, I don't agree with that. I think business managers should know what certain tools do, because the amount of times that business managers have said, oh, okay, yeah, let's just go and get that done. And then you've got the poor virtual assistant that's sat underneath them saying, well, it doesn't do that. And then you've got the online business manager that's now got to go back to the owner and say, oh, actually, we can't do that entire strategy that we've mapped out, so we need to rethink it. There's so many different elements, but I do think, as you say, you need to know what certain parts do. And people always say to me, because I started out as a virtual assistant, but from my skill set in corporate, I could have probably gone into a business management role straight away. But I don't regret doing the virtual assistant side, because I've done the implementation. I've got to know these different tools, and I've got to know the functionalities and how they work. So I would always say that's definitely something that I'd recommend.
Yeah. So what tips, I'd love to kind of just give some kind of, if people are thinking about outsourcing, if people are thinking about, okay, when should I consider outsourcing? Like, what could be some things that people can start doing now in preparation for that can then help, like, people like you and lots of other virtual assistants and agencies, whoever they decide to go with? Like, what can people do upfront now that can help them make both parties' life easier, that's going to be really beneficial?
Yeah, so I would say really get clear on the strategies that are working, what's working in the business, where you want that to go, and then start creating systems and processes around that strategy, because it's so much easier to be able to just hand over a system with all the processes, all the tools, all within, to, say, a virtual assistant, than what it is to have to sit there and train them. Because, and I always use this comparison around, as a business owner, you could say, okay, I'm going to train you on how I want this done. You sit there, you sit for a couple of hours with this virtual assistant, telling them how you want things done. You're paying the virtual assistant for those couple of hours that they're sitting there learning that thing. Whereas actually you could have just given them a full scalable system with processes, tools inside. They could have sat there, worked their way through and done the task all within a quarter of that time that you've paid, so you've paid yourself for a couple of hours to just sit there and train them how to do it, and you've paid the virtual assistant to do it as well. It just makes no sense. So create some structure in your business, because it will save you loads of time, loads of money. And even if you're thinking, okay, well, I'm not really ready to outsource yet, that's fine. Still create those systems, processes, and the structure in your business, because it's going to help you. Because, I don't know about you, Jay, but I've been in that situation where I sit there and I think, right, it's been really stressful. I need to get this thing done that I do like once a month. Where the hell do I start? Because you just, you come from a particular strategy, a particular process, maybe things just haven't been going well. And this thing that you do day in, day out, and then you all of a sudden think, I've had a mind blank. What do I do? So you sit there, you procrastinate a little bit, trying to figure out what it is you're doing. So that's where having that kind of process in place means that you just literally follow the process through. There's no kind of thinking that you're going to have to do and overwhelm yourself.
Yeah. And people like, I love a process doc. I used to like in the corporate world, I was always the person who like, Jenny, could you?
That was me.
Like, and if I was leaving a job and changing departments, I mean, I created like manuals with screenshots and arrows. Like, that's why I love making tutorials. I love doing that stuff. But even for myself, my own business, I started to document some bits, but I know I've still got a lot to document, so I can, as I grow. It's not a very sexy job. You think, oh yeah, let's spend my Friday, making a process document.
It's one of those things that I think, because some people will say to me, well, I'll just create a video. And, videos are great at creating the but I still believe that it needs to be documented, because, if you're handing it to a virtual assistant and you're only ever giving them a video, they're going to have to keep rewatching that video. And you know how distracting it is when you're watching a video and trying to do a task.
It's a lot more time consuming, isn't it, to watch a video than like the first time maybe, or if it's something really technical, then video is great. But if it's a bit simpler, then you can have that as well, but take screenshots. And like, I know certainly like when I teach Facebook techie stuff, it changes freaking constantly. So the amount of times, like now, whenever I make any tutorials about anything, like especially Facebook related, I'm like, this is what currently Facebook looks like. It may well look different. The amount of people that say to me, oh, my screen looks different to yours in the video. And it's like, use a bit of common sense as well, like just look around. But so I think having screenshots, and people can skim read, and like you say, especially if it's going back over again while they're getting themselves used to it before then they don't need that anymore. But initially having that will be so beneficial, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it does help, even for me, coming from that kind of virtual assistant side. We're jumping from client to client, and although we may do your thing weekly or monthly, whatever that is, we're doing that for multiple other clients as well. So we really need to make sure that you are documenting those processes, so it is easy for them to just pick up, because otherwise it's going to cost you more, because if you're paying for the time, they're going to sit there and try and get their head back into your business and the way you want things done.
I love that. Maybe that would be like if I'm like when you got your period days, when you don't really want to do much work, and you're just going to sit on the sofa with your laptop. That's the kind of job that feels good for those days. Or when you're just getting over like a cold or something, and you don't really want to do much work. It feels like a rainy day kind of thing, where it's like, I don't want to do anything. Let's do some behind the scenes stuff. Let's just sit down and document what I do.
And I think, people look at it, it's almost like people think I'm swearing at them when I say, create systems. And it's like, I've got all these things, like, where do I even start? But actually, you just need to start with the things that you do the most regularly, the things that are working, the things that are bringing you a return. Start documenting the thing that you're doing there and then. And don't it is going to be a work in progress. And I always say to people, this is going to be maintained. This isn't something that you just create and leave, because, things adapt, software adapts, the kind of strategy is going to adapt. So make sure that you are maintaining them, so you don't then put yourself, which many people do, they create these systems like 2 years ago, have not been touched since. And then they're like, oh, I've got to start again. So it's like, make sure you're keeping on top of it.
Yeah, and I think just keep it. It's at the end of the day, it's treating your business like a business, isn't it? It's like if you only want to earn like a bit of extra money, and it's not, this is a bit of a side hobby thing, then you may, you're not going to need to do all this stuff. But for most people, they want to build a successful business, whatever successful business looks like. Because for some people, it might be $2,000 a month. Some people, everyone seems to want to get to 10K a month. The 6 figures is always the big goal. I know it is for me. But some people want to get to 7. So if you've got those big dreams and big goals to have a thriving business, you're not going to be able to do it on your own. You're going to need to outsource, unless you want to burn out and be just work all the time, which you might want to, if that's what you want to do. Okay, crack on. But at the end of the day, it is going to be more beneficial for you to do that legwork. And say, you don't have to create it all in one go, but just keep it simple. Have a Google folder if you use Google Drive, just keep things simple, label things, link things as much as what you can. Because at the end of the day, Yeah, when you can outsource to one person, great. I think probably I'm feeling like, yeah, the first person to outsource is the hardest. And then after that, it's like, okay, now I, again, got a bit of a process of what do I need to do if I'm now ready to outsource something else? And then, okay, now I want to bring on a third and a fourth, team member, even the outsourcing, create a process for you. Because I know for me, like I recently outsourced, for the first time using like Upwork, and I was like, I haven't got a clue what to do. Like I didn't know what the process was. I mean, I'd had a VA before with someone I knew, so that was pretty easy. But even outsourcing is like, again, I would say, yeah, create a process for it with, okay, what did I do? What might you do differently next time? So when you come to then bringing someone else on, going, okay, now I haven't got to go, what do I do?
Yeah. That's the thing, and making sure that the kind of processes and the structures there before you outsource, because something that many clients have done is they've outsourced and then it's ended up as a disaster. They've then come to me in a frantic, oh, I don't know what to do, I don't want to have that again, and it's not necessarily the person that they've outsourced to, it's not necessarily their fault. It could be a match thing, it could be loads of different areas that could have kind of fallen down. But you want to make sure that you don't then lose the confidence, because that's when the clients are usually clients that have outsourced, it's ended in disaster, they then don't outsource, and then they get to a point where they're kind of borderline in burnout. And that's where you want to avoid being, because you want to make sure that when you do actually outsource that particular thing to someone, that it's the right thing to be doing, and you're not going to end up getting burnt effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, like I see, people question, when should I outsource, all the time. And I know, like you said, it's the things that you do regularly, the things that are working, but also really look at the stuff that doesn't need you. Like, scheduling posts on social media doesn't need you specifically. So if you're kind of thinking, again, where do I start with what tasks? If there's other things, write a list, like look at what is it that absolutely needs you, which, like, obviously I can't have somebody else do a video for me. So it's got to be us. If you are the person if you're a service-based provider and you are the designer, or you're the therapist, like I do therapy work with people, that's got to be me. But the editing videos, the scheduling posts, there's so many things that doesn't need you. So if you're not sure, I'd at least kind of recommend writing a list down of those things that you do. Maybe it could be part of your documenting processes. It's like, okay, what are the things that I do, and maybe mark them with needs me, like absolutely needs you. What are the things that you really like to do but maybe doesn't quite need you? Like I like doing design work, but I did outsource it because I know, as much as I like doing it, it doesn't need me. And what are the things that you don't enjoy that you would quite happily let go? And that can be a really nice place to start as well, can't it? So you as the business owner, the stuff that needs you, the stuff that you like and maybe you want to keep hold of, but maybe eventually you could let go, and the stuff that you're like, definitely don't enjoy doing that, someone else can take care of it, thank the Lord.
And it's being honest. I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to these activities, because that's some of the stuff that I do in the consulting side of the business. And we'll go through, and clients will give me their list, and their list of I need to do is still quite long, and I'm like, do you really? Like, it's being honest with yourself, and actually, sometimes we can take it as a bit of an ego beating, that we think, okay, well, we're the only person that can do this thing, whereas actually, when we look deep down and we think, am I the only person that can do this thing? Is content, for an example, writing a blog, is that not something that a copywriter will be able to do? And actually, could they probably do it better, because are they going to create a higher converting blog post, as an example? And it's almost making sure that you don't, one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is that they instantly jump to, I need to just outsource it to a virtual assistant, or I need a marketing virtual assistant. But then when you'll say, okay, well, what do you need them to do? They're like, well, I need them to put together my marketing plan, the strategy, how I can get this many leads. And I'm like, that's not really a virtual assistant. You know, you need to be making sure, fair enough, a marketer is going to be more expensive than that of a virtual assistant. However, you're going to get better results from the marketer because that's what they do. That's what they specialize in. And once you've got that plan, sure, come back and then we can give that to a virtual assistant. But just make sure that you have those foundations in place and you're not just immediately thinking, I need a virtual assistant because that's what people tell me I need to do first.
Yeah, I think like even just the term virtual assistant, people feel, because there's so many different types of virtual assistant, isn't there? There's the people that do more admin-y work, there's people that can do more techie stuff, there's people that can do like social media, and like you say, there's so many different stuff. But then you've got specialist, the people that like, if you want more of a consultant or specialist in like copywriting, that's a serious skill that, you know, they can literally turn your business from like here to here. If someone makes you a great sales page that you're making thousands on, like that's a specialist role, you know, that's a serious skill that takes time. You can't expect to be paying like £10 an hour to, you know, someone, or even 20, for someone to create you an amazing sales page that can literally, you know, skyrocket your sales. So I think that's I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a really important thing to remember, is what is it you're really looking for and who's the best person for that. Because like if you say, if you pick the wrong person in a way and you expect somebody from a different level to do something that is more of a specialist role, and then it's either crap or it's you're not happy, or it's not then converting how you want, or like whatever the outcome is that you're looking for, it's then going to waste your time, waste your money. You're going to be pissed off. And like you said, you then might get put off from outsourcing. So that's a really important message, I think, to give people, to just be clear on what is it you're actually asking for people, and are you asking too much, or
you know, I think the thing is, virtual assistants, where it really confuses the matter, that there's so many virtual assistants around, but they will say, I can write a blog post, and you know, they probably can because it's for their business, you know, whatever that looks like. But there's a difference between writing a bit of copy and getting results from copy. And I think that's really the difference there, is if you're coming to a virtual assistant without a strategy, without any kind of know-how of what you want done, you don't need a virtual assistant at the moment. You need someone that's going to help you with that content strategy or whatever that might be. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, it definitely gives me, you know, food for thought as well. Like I'm dying to outsource more, but it's looking at everything. And there is a time when you've got to sort of suck it up and go, okay, I've got to take care of it myself right now, because either I can't afford to outsource more, and doing it in stages, going, okay, like what I had to do, you know, like I contacted Charlotte and I was like, help, I need some help, you know, and I had to keep changing. I kept changing my mind. She was probably so annoyed with me because I was like, okay, I want this. And then it was like, again, for me, looking at my own process, going, actually, I'm in like, for me personally, I was in a routine of doing things like my video and podcast editing because I had to. So I was sort of in that motion of doing it, but I was there recognizing, okay, what are the things that I keep putting off that also need to get done? So that was where creating some of my graphics, I was like, okay, let's get rid of that first, because I'm already doing this. So I know that that's going to happen regardless. So let's get rid of that. And then the next bit now is going to be, okay, let's get ready. So when I can outsource, then the video and audio editing bit, that's ready to go. And I've been doing things. So I think it's important to really look at, is there stuff that is going to help your strategy that you keep putting off because either you don't feel skilled enough to do it, or you just don't like doing it, whatever it is. That might be a great place to start. If there's stuff that you are doing that, yes, maybe eventually you'd like to, it's prioritizing what really needs to go, so you can at least start, and then that extra hour or two a week you get back, okay, plow that into documenting the next lot of stuff. And it is just that but you've just got to start. I mean, you've just got to make a start, and you've just got to sit down and look at everything that you're doing to go, what can go, what can go that is going to support the strategy that you're doing to bring in more customers and clients. And I think that's what I've done anyway. And so far it's like, okay, I've done phase 1 and I can't wait to get to phase 2, but it's not quite there yet. But when it is, at least, all these tips that Charlotte has given today have been amazing, and they're certainly going to help me. Like, I'll definitely be creating some process document going forward. But I did that
hold you to
repurposing. I literally wrote down everything that I do in the order and for when I like things to do. So as I, take out more pieces of it, like you said, I can hand more over to make it easier. So love it. Thank you so much. Have you got any kind of last words of wisdom that you'd like to share with people today?
I think my last one is just make sure you don't overcommit. So, don't think about, okay, well, I need to put this out weekly because that's what someone's telling me to do. I saw something before where someone said that you have to do a blog post every single day. I was like, I could never do that. Like, even with a team, like, there is no way that's happening. And it's making sure that you kind of block out that noise of what you should be doing and just stay consistent. Don't overcommit. Do things that's comfortable for you. Because for me, I know with my podcast, I could do it weekly, but I probably won't get round to it all the time, because you have to look for the guests. There's so many more elements there. So I've said that I'm actually going to do it twice a month. And that then means that twice a month my podcast goes out, twice a month my blogs go out. And that's sustainable for me. I'm going to be consistent and it's not going to fall to pieces. Whereas if you overcommit and you think, I'm doing this blog post like weekly, and then I'm going to be doing a weekly podcast as well, it's too much. And especially when it's just you and your business, you can just then really easily find yourself on that kind of what I call the Burnout Express when you're on that road.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why, you've got to streamline things and repurpose stuff. Like, if I was creating a separate video, separate blog post, I mean, I only added podcast and stuff because it's a simple, I'm taking my video and I'm turning it into a podcast. I take that and that's what this show is, just repurpose the hell out of it. But even for me, even I'm going to change things next year based on, I've tested different ways of doing things, but for almost a full year now, and I know I'm going to tweak things, I'm going to change things again next year, based on, again, what's working and how much of creating all the content and stuff, is it effective? Because actually, I need to make sure I'm spending time doing the income producing activities and actually, doing all the things. So it's really important to, if you are going to be doing things, look at that streamlining. It's important. There's so many great tools out there that I've been testing out the last few weeks that are helping. So I'll definitely be sharing some of those things with you. But I think you've got so many awesome tips from this episode today, so I hope you found this useful. So Charlotte, do let people know how they can find you if they need further help from you, or if they want to be able to kind of learn more about your Burnout Slayer and listen to your podcast. So how can people find you? And I'll put all the links to everything in the show notes for everybody that's watching this episode.
Perfect. So I've got my website, which is burnout-slayer.com. And also I mainly hang out over on Instagram, but I'm on all the channels. Probably Instagram, Facebook are the best places to find me. And again, Instagram is I am Charlotte Lester, and then Facebook is Burnout Slayer.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll put all the links so you can be able to follow Charlotte and find her in the show notes. So make sure you check around this episode for the link where you can find the show notes. It will be having a summary of what we've talked about today, and any other kind of relevant resource that we think would be useful for this topic. So make sure you go and follow Charlotte. Thank you so much. This was fab. I knew it was going to be awesome. And I so appreciate you. I hope that you don't have too much noise from your neighbours. Charlotte's neighbours have decided to start digging up the garden, so we were like, fingers crossed it's not going to be noisy, which it's not at all. Didn't hear a peep.
Amazing.
So it's great. So thank you so much, Charlotte. Have an amazing rest of your day, and thank you so much everybody for hanging out with us today, and go and implement the things that you've learned today and let us know how you get on. All right. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.